Morning from sunny, hot Phoenix. It's already about 95 at about 6:30 this morning. Hot. This morning I want to talk about Chris Bache's book, LSD and the Mind of the Universe. It's an amazing book. If you don't know about it, Chris did, over the course of 20 years, all in secret without letting anyone know, he did 20 high-dose LSD journeys. And we're talking high, we're not talking, these are not messing around doses. And he took extremely detailed notes and spent that whole time, those 20 years, integrating and kind of coming into clarity around what the messages were. And then he took another 20 years after that to write the book and continue the integration process. And it was only after he retired from his work as a professor that he published the book just a couple of years ago. Amazing record of an incredible journey and so much good stuff in it. I want to talk about just a couple of things here that have really shed some beautiful light on my journeys, and some of the questions I've had that I have been kind of unable to get clear on, get answers on, and his book has really helped to shed some beautiful light onto certain things. So things I specifically want to share or explore are his experience of and insights into the purpose of suffering, both individual and collective within the collective of humanity. Why some of us seem to have more challenges around letting go of that suffering and the pain and the woundedness. And then what happens when we finally do let go of that woundedness and that suffering? Why, how, when that can happen. So let's start with the purpose of suffering. There's a lot of people who wonder, in my life, why I continue to put myself into an environment of suffering, namely the medicine work that I do. Because honestly, while I have had glimpses and moments of bliss and joy and ecstasy and peace and oneness, the vast majority of my time in the medicine space has been suffering, struggle, pain, challenge. It's confused me, honestly, because I have been doing this work for a long time. I do it very regularly, consistently. I'm no like Chris. I don't mess around with recreational doses. I'm doing deep work, so why, after almost 14 years of doing this work, is my experience still one of suffering, challenge, pain, mostly? So Chris had a similar experience. The first 10 to probably 12 years of his journey work, there was a lot of suffering, a lot of healing of personal wounds, and what he realized is that his work moving through the deep suffering was moving into the collective. He was becoming, I guess you could say, and these are my words, I'm obviously paraphrasing his stuff, so I highly recommend reading the book if this is interesting to you. At some point he realized that he was moving into a role as a cleanser for the suffering of humanity, the suffering of the collective of humanity. And I've experienced that since even before my work with the medicine. Even when I was doing the very first time I did a deep ritual when I was studying with Malidoma Somé, there was a moment when it became so clear that I had shifted beyond my own personal woundedness and had dropped into a field of collective wounding and was at the time it felt like I was drowning in that, but in retrospect I realized I was on some level contributing to a cleansing of that, a healing of that collective wounding. Hopefully this helicopter going over won't be too loud. And that has continued in the work that I've done, whether within medicine space or outside of medicine space. This sense of there's a place at which our personal wounding opens up a doorway or a portal into the collective, and we become a conduit for the healing and the clearing and the cleansing of some aspect of the collective woundedness. And we each have specific pieces that our individual experience has brought to the surface, and we contribute to the collective healing in that specific way. So that was so good to hear Chris talk about that, and to really get validation that yes, this deep healing work that I've been doing, the continued experience of suffering and pain in the medicine space has been valuable. It has served a purpose beyond just pushing myself into suffering. So that has been really great. The second piece, why do some of us seem to have a harder time kind of breaking out of that cycle? Why do some of us seem to have a harder time actually getting to the point where we have, healed ourselves, cleared the wounds, so that we don't have to experience suffering any longer? And what Chris shared, and which makes so much sense to me now, is that for some of us, our role is to be a cleanser, a conduit for the cleansing of the collective. It's not a fun job. I can guarantee you, it is not a fun, pleasant, pleasurable vocation. But, for whatever reason, that's what some of us have signed up to do. And if our personal wounding, our personal trauma, our personal pain and suffering was cleared and cleansed and released too soon, we would not have that catalyst that pushes us to continue the healing process and to dive deeper and deeper into the healing process. And so the reason why, for some of us, myself included, the healing process takes longer is so that we can continue to have that catalyst that pushes us to be that conduit for the collective healing. And yeah, it kind of sucks. I will admit, I'm not going to lie to you. There have been many, many moments in ceremony where I have seriously questioned why I'm doing this work, seriously questioned if I want to continue. And honestly, the only thing that has pushed me to continue is the fact that I felt like, and continue to feel like, there is still more healing that is meant to happen, both on a personal and now I see and get and recognize on a collective level. So if you're one of those people like me who seem to watch as all your friends and allies and colleagues in this work seem to be healing and shedding old layers of wounding and trauma, and you're still wondering why you're holding on to it, well, maybe you chose to be here to be a deep conduit for the healing of the collective. Possible, something to think about. And then the last thing I want to talk about is what happens, or is there a point at which that personal healing work completes so that you don't have to continue to go into suffering all the time? And if so, why does that happen? How does that happen? When does it happen? And this was one of the pieces that I just so loved hearing Chris talk about in his experience, and just makes so much sense. And what he said is that at some point on the healing journey, when you've done a lot of deep healing personally, when you've continued to do a lot of work, hello barky puppies, when you've continued to do a lot of work as a conduit for the healing of the collective, at some point in that process, you actually become more valuable to the energies of life as a conduit for higher frequency energies, the energies of joy and bliss and love and light. So you shift from being this really important, I smell a fire somewhere, from this playing this important role as a cleanser of karma, a cleanser of suffering, the karma, the patterns, the habits, the beliefs that perpetuate suffering in the collective. You move from where that's your most valuable role, that's the most valuable work you can do, to where the most valuable work you can do is being a conduit for higher frequency energies, higher vibration energies of light and love, of healing, of joy, of wholeness, of integration. And at that point, there's no more need for the suffering. One of the things I noticed as I have been reading Chris's book is that as he's been sharing his experience, there's a part of me that is like, yeah, as I understand now what I've been doing, it becomes less about getting out of that suffering. And there's even now a part of me that's like, yeah, bring it on. I have the capacity to handle a lot of suffering in the ceremonial space and outside of ceremonial space. And if that is my role, or one of the ways that I have chosen to show up in this lifetime to serve the awakening of humanity, this moment in humanity of great change, then bring it on. And the interesting thing is that in that acceptance, there seems to be a letting go of the need to have the experience in a ceremonial space, to have the experience in life be so filled with suffering. So it'll be interesting to see, and I even noticed it a couple weekends ago when I was in ceremony space. The Friday, Saturday ceremonies were deep, very challenging, deep suffering, deep pain. But Sunday night, about halfway through, a couple 3 hours into the ceremony, something just shifted, and it wasn't anything that I did. There was just, well, that's not true. I think there was a level of surrender that I brought to the experience that was new, that was deeper than than I've normally gotten to. And in that surrender, there was an experience for the last few hours of the ceremony of deep peace and even bliss. And it was almost like there's this sense of, oh, if I can be okay with whatever's here in ceremony, in life, in each moment, then it is no longer suffering. And with these insights that are coming through reading this book, I really am okay. You know, if my work in ceremonial space is all about, you know, someone said, what are they? Oh, pain eater. He said, oh, you're a pain eater. And I said, yeah, well, I guess so. And if that's what I'm meant to be, that's okay. You know, I can sit in ceremony for 5 or 6 hours, and if eating pain helps to bring some healing to humanity, I'm okay with that. So, not suggesting that that's what you need to do or that's what your role is, but if you are someone who has felt challenged by how long and how deep the suffering feels and how long it seems to be lasting, consider that you may be signed up for a spin around the sun on this earth, a few spins around the sun on this earth, to be a conduit for the healing of humanity's collective suffering and pain. And that is, in my opinion, a pretty freaking awesome job to play. And the more you can accept that and own it, I think the more the suffering, the experience of suffering, the experience of pain relaxes, and the more you can step into it from a place of acceptance and even looking forward to it in a weird way, not in a masochistic kind of way, but in a way where you're like, yeah, this is why I'm here. This is what I'm meant to do. I'm going to do it well. I'm going to show up and do it in a good way. All right. And there's the hawk saying hello. All right. Peace out.